Okay, welcome back. Now we're going to do a bunch of examples, and I'm going to show you another model, the chip model again, to show you how we can visualize what's going on here. Again, it's one thing to apply the rules, but also have an idea of why these rules work. Okay, so the first one, again, I'm going to apply the rules, and then I'm going to show you the chip method, or the chip model. And so, what do we have here? We have -2 minus -6. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the sign, right? Is change it to an addition sign and change the sign of the second number. We never change the sign of the first number. The first number always stays unchanged. We always, if we're going to change the subtraction to an addition, we always change the sign of the second number, the number that immediately follows the subtraction sign. So this would be the same as -2 plus 6. And then we apply the appropriate rule. So in this case, opposite signs means we subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So it would be 6 minus 2, which is 4. And since 6 is the larger number, it's going to be positive. Now, what about this one? Again, we're going to do the same thing. Change it from subtraction to addition, and then change the sign of the number that follows it. So this would be -8 plus 3. And so now, we're going to apply the rule, the appropriate rule. Opposite signs means that we subtract the two numbers and keep the sign of the larger number. So 8 minus 3 is 5, and since the larger number is 8 and it's negative, the answer is going to be -5. Okay, same thing here. We're going to change it to a plus, right? And change the 9 to a negative. So this is going to be -4 plus -9. And now in this case here, the signs are the same. We're adding, so the signs are the same, which means we add the numbers and keep the sign. So it would be -13. And again, the same thing with fractions, right? Fractions and decimals we handle the same way. Once we do the rules, we add or subtract the fractions or decimals the same way we learned before, okay? So in this case here, I'm going to change it to an addition problem. So this is going to be -3/4 plus -5/16. Now, since they're the same sign, I'm going to add the fractions and keep the sign. So how do I add the fractions? Well, I got to have a common denominator. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the answer is going to be negative, but I'm adding the fraction. So what's an equivalent fraction of 16, right? So the common denominator I want is 16ths. So this is going to be 16. So I have to multiply the top and the bottom by 4. So that gives me 12/16 plus 5/16, which gives me a -17/16. Okay. Now this one here, you could do it in your calculator, but let's just apply the rules and find the answer. So I'm going to change all of these to pluses, right? But again, remember, if you change it to an addition problem, if you change it from a minus to a plus, you have to change the sign of the number that comes after it. So this number and this number, I'm going to have to change the sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this as -26.75 plus, now I'm going to change the sign of this number, which is going to be just positive. So that's just going to make it 44.38, and then plus, and then this is going to become negative, right? So -16.96. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the negatives together, right? Because I can add those and keep the sign. So if I do that, I get -16.96. And so what does that give me? That gives me -43.71. Okay? And now I'm going to have negative, right? So this is going to give me negative 43.71 plus 4438. Now, these have opposite signs, so that means I'm going to subtract the 2 and keep the sign of the larger number. So that means the final answer is going to be positive. So I'm going to subtract these two numbers and keep the positive value. So again, what would I do? It'd be 44.38 minus 43.71. And so now I'm just going to subtract. So I'm going to get 0 and then 1, but then I'm going to borrow and make this a 13, so that's going to be 0. And so then 13 minus 7 is 6, and then I get 7. So it's going to be 0.67 is my final answer, and it's going to be positive. So positive 0.67. Now, that's how using the rules. So let me show you the chip model. Okay, so let's do the chip model for the first one. Okay, so the chip model here says I have -2 and I want to subtract -6, right? So I have -2, so let's do the chip model. And inside the circle I have -2 chips. So let's call those, let's do those with black, okay? Now that's what I have, right? Now, I want to subtract 6 of those negative chips. I want to subtract a -6, which means I want to take away, I want to take out of the circle 6 negative chips. Well, the problem is I don't have any negative chips. Okay? This is where the idea of the opposites comes in. So I'm going to add 0 to the circle. How do you add 0 to the circle? By adding a negative chip along with a positive chip in the circle. And then so that leaves everything unchanged. It's 0, right? If I add a black chip and a red chip, or a positive chip and a negative chip, then the net effect is 0, right? So I'm adding 0. So what I'm going to do is, I need 6 chips to take away, right? Right? That's what the subtraction means. I have 2 negative chips. I want to subtract 6 negative chips. I don't have 6 negative chips to subtract from, so I'm going to manufacture them in a manner of speaking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 0. So I'm going to add, I need how many more chips? I got 2, I need 4 more. So now, if I'm going to add 4 negative chips, I need to add 4 positive chips to cancel with the 4 negative chips so that I still have -2. Now, what do I have? I have 6 negative chips that I can subtract or take out of the circle. And what does that leave me inside the circle? It leaves me with 4 positive chips, which is exactly what I have, a +4. Okay? Now, what about this one? So now let's keep the same idea. Okay, and I'll leave this one this way. So now here I have 8 negative chips, so let's put them in the circle. Okay, and I want to subtract -3 chips. 3 negative chips in other words. So I have 8 negative chips and I want to take away 3 negative chips. So let's do that. So let's take 3 of the chips and take them out of the circle. What do I have left in the circle? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negative chips, and I get a -5. And that's how it's done. So that's another kind of visual model to help you construct or have an idea, something to think about when you're thinking about abstract concepts. Okay, have a great day.